Our topics tonight are citizen science and design thinking. These are two tools in the vast tool chest of innovation that people have used, and they are two successful and well-known tools that I think all of you know a little bit about, but maybe are here to learn more about. So I'm going to dive in with you, Letitia. You all have a wonderful guide. I want to thank Bettina and Stephanie for putting together both the guide and the flipboard. Take a few minutes to check out the guide. There are very in-depth, wonderful bios on each of our panelists. I won't take time to read over them, but needless to say, they're all amazing in their fields. So do read over it. Letitia, just very briefly, is an engineer by training. She's
biologist.
She's a biologist, thank you. She works with the Engineering Epicenter at Stanford and the Hasso-Plattner Design Center at Stanford. And her main goal in life right now, at least, is teaching, consulting, and spreading design thinking. That's very superficial. Tell me a little bit, though, how have you been involved with design thinking, and what would you say is your contribution to the field right now?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I wear kind of like two hats. One, at Stanford, I teach Stanford students of all disciplines, and the goal of the D-School is to bring students of different disciplines together so that they learn a common language of creative problem definition and problem solving. Design thinking is that language that we give them, so that they can tackle together complex problems. So that's what I do with Stanford students. On the other hand, my other hat that I wear, I care about engineering students across the US. We believe, and this happens at Stanford, that students and engineers in particular can no longer graduate with just like a technical education and be excellent technically. They need to have a set of skills and mindsets that allow them to identify opportunities for innovation and tackle big problems, and no longer think of, I'm just going to graduate and I'm just going to work in this big company. That might be a suitable route for many, but they need to be thinking differently. What are the big problems and how can I solve them? So my center is supported by the National Science Foundation, and we work with faculty and with students across the US in bringing entrepreneurship and innovation into engineering education.
Perfect. Sounds like you're really active, and it sounds like you're doing a lot of good. Can you, for those of us, myself included, who don't know enough about design thinking or even anything about design thinking, could you tell me what is design thinking and maybe walk us through the process of how it works?
Sure. So design thinking, you can think about it as a process for problem definition and problem solving, and that's important. It's not only solving a problem, but really thinking and framing what are the interesting problems to solve, right? And to do that in a human-centered way, so not thinking about the technology, the solution, but what are the needs of people that perhaps technology, but perhaps other things like a different process of doing things can solve. Incorporating creativity, so not only analytical thinking, but incorporating divergent thinking and thinking of multiple ideas. And a prototyping mentality, so trying different things and really experimenting at low resolution before just marrying yourself to one idea and implementing that idea and then figuring out that it doesn't work. So it is a process, but underlying that process, it's a set of mindsets. So I like to think of that process of something that gradually disappears as you practice it. So what is left is a set of mindsets and behaviors and a worldview that no matter what is thrown at you, you are empathetic, you're human-centered, you are an experimenter, and you are creative. You can always find a creative solution for problems.
It's a wonderful answer. It leads to many more questions, which are on to you, because we aren't going to do them now. I'm going to move on because we have so many lovely panelists. Jenny, I'm going to turn to you. IDEO.org is design thinking writ large in the, I would say, commercial sphere, but .org of IDEO is sort of your nonprofit side of IDEO. And for those of you who don't know, IDEO is one of the design shops, quote unquote, that helped bring the movement outside of academia to the commercial world and now the nonprofit world. Tell me a little bit about how you've done that in the nonprofit world. What's been your role in
Yeah, I mean, a phrase we like to use is to build on things, right? So it's always yes and when you're sort of ideating with people, you're not just speaking your mind, you're also building off of someone's ideas. I'll do that now with a lot of what Letitia had said about innovation and thinking about what human-centered design is. The history of IDEO, the firm, which is an innovation consulting firm, it's pretty lengthy. It's like 30 years that they've been in the Bay Area, originating out of Palo Alto. And they sort of built a methodology that worked really well, not only in traditional industrial design and engineering projects, but something that actually started to cross over into experiences and services. So more famously, like the Bank of America Keep the Change program is something you might be familiar with. That was all born out of a very sort of empathetic, human-centered, sort of design-driven approach to thinking about how are people actually spending their money and how do they think about saving. So we're using that methodology to start thinking about social problems because as it stands, access to clean water is something that we might be taking for granted, but is actually built upon a really substantial history of thinking about how that happens. And that's a gift and something that needs to be shared and applied also to international development issues. So that's kind of where IDEO.org stands. Our emphasis is on alleviating global poverty and using human-centered design thinking and processes to help solve some of the more challenging problems we see in the world.
How long have you all been around?
We've been around formally as a 501c3 for 3 years, so we are a separate entity from IDEO, but the emphasis on really working in the social innovation space has been kind of an interest of our CEO for about a decade.
So where do you see design thinking moving in the next 10 years? What do you think its greatest challenges are, and what do you think its greatest opportunities are?
Yeah, I'm glad I went to the annual meeting yesterday because I think the CEO answered that for us.
That's the homework.
So I think traditionally, like a lot of innovation in design consulting firms, they're a consulting model, so they provide a lot of services for people. But what we're finding is we're learning very quickly and learning how to improve our own organization so that we're actually becoming a platform for a lot of problem solving. So it's not just a matter of having a single problem, solving that, and sort of walking away from it. We're continuously building and becoming smarter as a result of it. And the program that I work with most directly is really good evidence of that. So the Amplify program is a 5-year initiative between Open IDEO, which is an open innovation platform, so it's very simply just a website, everyone can visit it, along with IDEO.org, which is the implementing organization funded by the UK Department for International Development. So the UK Department for International Development comes to us and say, we want to be more innovative about the way that we're doling out international aid. Like there's a better way of doing it. There's a way to be incorporating the public in a way that makes a lot of the solutions more meaningful and a lot more sustainable. How do we do that? And so we've incorporated the use of an open innovation platform, which is a product of IDEO, along with the sort of perspective and the human capital from IDEO.org to implement something like this. So, you know, for our organization, it means that we don't walk away from a problem. We actually stick with it for as long as we possibly can. And I think that that's kind of the trend I'm seeing in human-centered design is that it's really difficult once you've unlocked something truly innovative to leave it at that. You know, it's like, what can we do in addition? How can we move forward and actually get closer to solving a problem?
And it's also really difficult if you're working with larger organizations. Individuals themselves aside are also, you know, that's a whole different story. But Jessica's consulting firm has worked, GOBI Group, works a lot both with larger organizations in healthcare, finance, education, all of these areas. Jessica also straddles the divide, I guess, if you will, between design thinking, citizen science, and multiple other innovation tools. Tell me a little bit about what you've done in design thinking, citizen science, and what GOBI Group's forte is.
Well, funny enough, we started, GOBI Group spun off of a group I started in 2002 when major multinational technology companies were trying to figure out what to do with technology for the majority of the world, but they knew nothing about the rest of the world. So they came to Berkeley campus looking for researchers who did a lot of field research in so-called developing economies and asked the question, what do they need? And they came to one person on campus, which was stunning, and a sign that there was a huge area, gap of information, I'll call it, between a lot of needs on the ground for access to technology, meaningful technology, and these major multinationals. But by 2009, there were many other needs that came to the table, and by other organizations, foundations, and donor agencies, and other academic institutions. So we found a larger role in trying to bring together large-scale initiatives that aim to bring technology and social impact together. And one example would be extending the safety net, health access to populations who are both lacking health care insurance and are actually impoverished or below the poverty line. And so that's an example of a project we do for the state of California, using innovation thinking with our largest county hospital system, saying, well, what is the problem you have as a team in trying to reach these patients? How are you going to serve them better? And is there or is there not a role for technology? So we very much go from the large scale down right to the team and work to problem solve. We also work internationally. Most of our work is international. And so we'll also work with an initiative like the Clinton Health Access Initiative is looking to make sure that access to AIDS treatment, HIV treatment, is more efficient, better cost, and more readily available to populations in need in 7 countries in Africa. So we're creating a tool that will help country governments and nonprofit organizations in country make those decisions better. So that's an example of sort of the straddling you mentioned. But design thinking and innovation thinking is always part of our work, because we always try to work back from the assumptions and start with the need. What's the need you're actually trying to solve? Because most people come to us after a project's been rolled out in maybe several towns, several countries, and go, oops, it's not working. Now what? And we step back and say, well, what was the need that we're really looking at? And were the people actually at the table at its inception who you really needed to be listening and learning from before we necessarily threw a technology box at it? So that's one example.
Large scale and small scale, you've worked with them both. What do you think is the biggest challenge other than the oops moment? And once you've come up with a solution of actually implementing the solution?
I think since I started in poverty alleviation projects in 1995 with revolving loan projects for low-income women in rural areas of Vietnam. And then and today it hasn't changed. We have a very tough time listening to the little guy or the little woman. And actually the needs that they've asked to be identified and listened to. So it's the same problem. We have solutions in search of a problem and a need when the need has already been defined. So we have a little bit of trouble listening, I would say, is still our greatest weakness.
Before we get any deeper, I want to jump to our citizen scientists. Citizen science is some people say that it is an offshoot of design thinking. I don't know if that's exactly accurate. It was certainly an innovative tool who's related to design thinking. One of the experts we have in citizen science is Lena Nielsen, who is here with us from Berkeley. Berkeley has a wonderful center called the Blum Center. And one of the laboratories they have there is called DIL. Could you tell us a little bit more about your role in citizen science and what you all do at DIL?
Sure. And I think it falls very nicely from what Jessica said. Our focus is also on international development and science and technology for the world's poor. And I think the sentence I often use to summarize what Jessica just said probably more eloquently is like, great ideas are everywhere, but the opportunity to act on them is not. So a lot of what we do is opening up who is contributing to development work, and particularly for us, because it's our strength in science and technology. So in citizen science, that means having an open innovation process. So often citizen science is defined as non-experts contributing scientific research or to technological design, new products. But we define it even a bit broader, saying it's what one might think of as an untraditional contributor, someone who doesn't work at a big company, maybe is in a community, is in some tangential field. So at UC Berkeley, for example, not thinking internationally, but in our community, that might be saying, oh, we have someone in computer science that does amazing face recognition for security in subways, but you know what? They can also diagnose tuberculosis by image recognition quite easily, and that's a tremendous product that we've not put out in Vietnam, for example. So it's also about this creative synergy of people moving between fields. They seem disparate, but actually have commonality. So you have deep expertise, but you bring it to a new area and these incredible creative things can happen. And so this is what the Blum Center does. We say we don't just service people who already think they're interested in international development, but we talk to people from anthropology to German studies to engineering, and find creative ways that they can also contribute to make the world better, whether that is a community in sub-Saharan Africa or in California.
You actually have a CNN hero in your midst.
We do.
Dr. Laura Staffel,
That's right.
who spoke at the social impact.
Yeah,
of
who is near and dear to my heart because I work at GSBI and she's our fellow.
Of We Care Solar.
That's right. She sits in the office next to me.
Yeah.
Amazing people that
So they
surround.
bring technology which was created in the backyard to
Right.
Africa to keep women alive who are birthing in the middle of the
That's
night.
right. So I'm talking about this big, vague, big picture, but we call ourselves a think and do tank. So in addition to that vague, big thinking, there's over 50 specific projects like these electrification projects for maternity clinics all over Africa and Asia. That's right.
So over 50 specific projects.
That's right.
Not that I have any time, but I have a ton of interest. And I'm sure you do too. How can we in the Bay Area get knowledge of these projects, or how can we get involved? I'm not a scientist. I don't know engineering. I could play one on TV, but it wouldn't be very good. How can we get involved?
Well, here's my very practical thing then. One thing that we do is we bring in practitioners in residence, we call them. So people volunteer an afternoon to come in and give other perspectives. So we have people with deep expertise in their areas, but really you need to talk to someone who does supply chain, someone who's worked in India, someone who knows about advertising and marketing and packaging of products. So we love to have people come in to give these other perspectives that you don't find at the academic institution. Because if you want things that work in the real world, you need all of those things. And so far, I haven't met anyone that doesn't have something to bring that's really valuable. Might not always know it, because it's harder. The things you know you think are obvious, but they're not to the rest of us.
You always get more than you give,
So,
right?
yeah.
So
give me your cards.
yes,
Can I just build on that and
Yes,
say
ma'am.
that that's very important, that like if you're in an academic institution, that shouldn't be a limitation to go out in the real world either, right? Or bring the real world to you, but also we have a class at Stanford at the D School, Design for Extreme Affordability, and the students go and work with partners in developing countries and have developed amazing solutions for real needs, right? And sometimes, and they always go beyond what the partners think that the need is,
Yeah.
and work with the local communities and see different perspectives. And for instance, Embrace, it's a portable incubator that is, costs $200. And actually the insight there was, most of the preemie babies are born in towns, in villages, not at the hospital. So they need the incubator there, not at the hospital. They are not going to make it there, right?
Right.
So the importance of going out as well.
So Googling Design for Affordability, Googling the Blum Center, looking up citizen science in the Bay Area, everybody has something they can do. But speaking to what you talked about going outside the academic world and getting involved, companies also get involved, and companies get involved outside the social sphere in the commercial sphere. Geeta Rao is with a company called Triple Ring Technologies, who has founded an entire company on how citizen science can be useful, monetized, and profitable. Can you tell us a little about what you do with citizen science at Triple Ring?
I hadn't met Lena till today, in fact, this event, but what was really interesting to me is many of the things you said to describe Bloom Center applies to us perfectly. So we too call ourselves a think and do tank, except we're sitting on the other side of the academic divide in some ways. And what we do is we reach out to the academics all the time. So we have what we call porous boundaries. And so as a company, we take great research that is done in universities, or in fact innovated out in the Silicon Valley, entrepreneur world, and we bring it to, we often will translate them to something commercializable, or to an actual practical practical implementation of it. And so we have, just like you described your afternoons, we call it out-of-the-box lunch. And so we host a weekly out-of-the-box lunch where we invite somebody usually from universities, but could be from another company, to come and talk to us and tell us about different things. We've had Simone over, and that's our monthly forum that we run. too, and it's free and open to the public, so we just have great conversations around different topics of interest. And most of what we do, about 60% of what we do, is in medical technologies, healthcare of some sort. And then about the rest of it is, remaining 40% is security, defense, and aerospace. And these are all global industries, so pretty much everything we do is across the international. And a lot of the work that we do involves this kind of cross-pollination. So that's very much a hallmark of what we do. So we could take, for example, an imaging technology that came out of low-dose X-rays for pediatric use. So one of the challenges with doing surgeries on pediatric patients is that they can't handle the X-ray dose for very long, and so we had a special technology that was that could produce like 1/10 the level of X-rays that is needed in particular application for pediatrics. So we were able to take that specialty X-ray technology and actually apply it to security for baggage screening, because there's certain aspects of it that
Thank you.
that opens us up to. In fact, the specific capability we brought to that was the ability to detect liquids that were explosive. So now you can take your wine bottle and your water bottle in with you.
When is the TSA going to catch up?
So, yeah. So it's already been deployed in Europe. In fact, the Germans, it's a German company, and they started screening baggage. They've done some pilots earlier this year in January, and the TSA is in line.
So it's helpful, citizen science and design thinking. It's profitable. Companies use it for more than social good. Social good can also feed profitable good. Is it costly? Time, money to implement? Does it cost you more?
No, I think the value we create is very much the ability to look across different fields of use, different technologies, and to cross-pollinate. So it's a question of, you know, how does it cost, or how does it all work, or who pays for it. Often that's also part of, you might say, citizen science. For us, it's more like crowdfunding. I mean, to some extent, we'll often bring multiple parties to the table to help finance.
We're moving. We are.
So we often have to. We bring the very same. Yeah, the very same approach that we bring to cross-pollinating technologies and cross-pollinating applications to the financing as well.
Perfect.
So that's exactly what we do.
So we've heard from large organizations, we've heard from academia. How about somebody who's bridged the unthinkable and used innovation in the government? It works, right? Kate Bennett is from a company called Spigot, do I have that right? Who is now part of MindJet, our host, thank you, MindJet. And Kate's first job before she came to MindJet was working with the UK government, one of their largest departments, which was akin to our Department of Labor. I'm not going to say the name because it's not the same. And later took that success story, and it was a success story, private, into a methodology and a means of using innovation in companies and larger companies, and how to apply it across the board. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So one part of the MindJet software is something called Spigot Engage, which is a innovation management platform that people access online. And we work with large companies such as Cisco, Walmart, Coca-Cola, to help them use this platform to get ideas from employees, filter down the ideas to work out which are best for the company, and then implement those ideas. So it's trying to automate the kind of suggestion box in the corner of a room, which you never see the ideas again once they go in there. Maybe an example of someone we work with. So you mentioned the UK government.
Mm-hmm.
So we ran a public challenge with the UK government, the Prime Minister's office, a few years ago. And their challenge was they wanted to help SMEs get more involved with government. It's very hard for small to medium-sized enterprises to get government contracts. So we worked with them to frame the appropriate question. It's something to do with how can you as a business provide better value to government? They ran a 3-month challenge open to the public. Any small to medium-sized enterprise could enter to kind of pitch to the government. No restrictions on who could pitch, as long as you were an SME. After the kind of initial brainstorming phase, there was a voting phase and sort of commenting. Again, anyone in the country could comment and input these ideas. That filtered the ideas down to, got it down from about 350 to a few less. At that stage, we had a consulting group come in and do a pretty detailed review of the top ideas. And from that, they chose 9 ideas to take forward to a mentoring process to help these 9 SMEs work out or kind of learn better how to influence government and how to get government contracts. At the end, they had a big kind of presentation session, and these 9 companies kind of pitched this is what we could do to help you, if you went with us. The result of that was that if the government had gone with all those 9 companies, they would have saved 1.7 billion per year, just from those 7. So it's
and helped small and medium enterprises who otherwise wouldn't have gotten government contracts.
Definitely. And it really kind of raised the profile of those SMEs and further SMEs. Kind of similar to IDEO, where it's there's a platform, and that's really important, but it's also really important what happens offline and the human piece of it.
Do you think there's been any difference in what you've done with the UK government in how you've helped private companies?
Public and private, they have very similar problems. So very similar challenges. You often need someone spearheading it. So it's not just a case of turn on your ideas suggestion box and let it happen. It really needs people spearheading. It's also the biggest challenge we find is that it needs within businesses, it needs a culture change. I guess that's a contrast to the public. So public are often very enthusiastic about entering ideas and collaborating with other people, whereas within businesses, people are a bit more hesitant, not quite sure, maybe my boss won't be happy with me if I suggest this or say this.
That is wonderful insight, and that brings me to Christine. Christine is a consultant who works with both large organizations and small organizations. She works also with individuals within those organizations. Blue Bubble Innovation, getting it down to the individual level and helping the person, be that within the large organization or small or even on their own, is a difficult thing. How have you used design thinking, citizen science, or innovation in general in your consulting business?
Right. That's true because, basically it's about breaking habits. And because it happens at companies, as Kate was mentioning, companies often have their own set of rules, the way that you would do certain things, and they've been set for a long time. So what I do specifically with Blue Bubble is I think employees often don't tap into the creative brain of the people. I think that the online part, the innovation management systems, the important part, and I think you also need to bring it back to the people and have them really learn what creativity is, the skills of creativity. It's a little bit more difficult to address the other part of creativity, which is the personality angle. But yes, on the skills of personality, you can definitely train people, and it has a lot of benefits. So what I do specifically is I have multi-immersive type of workshops, because you do need to pat people on the head and try to make them go away from the comfort zone. And creativity is really the front end of innovation. That's the thinking part, if you want, of innovation. And of course, for an innovation to be successful, you will need the whole system. So we start with the ideas, and then they are implemented, they are being commercialized. And there are lots of little pieces that need to be in the right place to allow for innovation, right? Like the space, the culture of the enterprise, and so forth. But it all starts with the ideas, and you can have processes in place that allow for a more focused, more high quality type of idea, so that ultimately to have a better chance to succeed.
So having processes in place, working with the individual, how important, we're here in Silicon Valley, and you're nothing unless you busted a company. How important, if you're an entrepreneur, that is, or you busted a project if you're in a larger company. And we spoke earlier on the panel about, I want to try all this new stuff, but my boss will kill me, type of thing. How important is failure in creativity and design thinking and innovation? And how do you get people to get comfortable with it if it is important?
It is important, and actually that's very interesting because some companies that are successful in their innovation, they will celebrate failure. I mean, really, like formally have like a CV of your worst failures, or like really have a party with it. But you know, having said that, it's tough sometimes, right? Because you're measured on given metrics at the end of your yearly review, and so you have to hit the targets. It's always easier not to rock the boat than to rock the boat. You have politics that play a role. What I will say is failure, you also have to take the time and reflect and learn about it. Because failure just for the sake of making failure and not really reflecting, then, you know, at the end of the day, you'll just keep on doing the same error. So it's important to allocate enough time for reflection. So let's move now on to the third persona, the happy Buddha.
Happy Buddha.
So how would Buddha do it?
He only does what feels right in this moment.
Okay, a little bit of Zen moment here.
Exactly at all times.
Little middle path.
Flow. Flow.
He needs to let go of his reputation for being happy.
Yeah.
Relax, you know.
Give him a body to get grumpy.
Find a new emotion.
So I think I haven't heard a lot from this corner. Do you want
Any comments on Happy Buddha?
Yeah?
Thoughts about Happy Buddha?
Okay, moving fast here. Joe the plumber is coming along.
That's what it was.
Joe the plumber. Yes, plumber.
I mean, the Joe the plumber.
The Joe.
Any Joe.
Joe the plumber.
From the last
Average hire assistant.
Just we need to get those people through here.
Sorry. Work-life balance. He already has work-life balance.
I think he would become a politician or something.
You Joe the plumber.
Yeah.
You keep on wanting to change the people. Stick with
She's the famous Joe the plumber.
She's really the famous.
He has a 9-to-5 job and he doesn't really have that.
A six-pack, or at least 2
or 3
That
bags.
kind of six-pack, no?
And bowling. Yeah.
They were, yeah, they were.
Oh, bowling.
How about a new wardrobe?
Automated tools.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but I'm kind of like also cognition of the time here. So any reaction, and we did it like very fast. I mean, usually it's better if we have about 5 minutes for each one of the character, and this is a big group. So typically that would work a little bit better between 3 to 6 people. But what did you find? I mean, was it easy to put yourself in this person's shoes, or hard?
Timekeeper under 4 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
For me, it was very difficult.
Because it's kind of out of the blue.
I always think everybody must be happy in jail. Yeah, so it's my problem.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the...
Well, I think I can also give a real world example how we've used this. So recently in 2 large county hospital systems, they suddenly had to see a patient as a customer, and before it was just the customer. It wasn't the customer, it was the patient. And all these assumptions were made. So they had to step back and say, well, I don't know what my patients actually think. I've never asked them. So you have now doctors and nurses and other folks asking patients from their point of view, how did it feel sitting in our waiting room for 2.3 hours for your appointment? How did that make you feel? And what they got back were they had made assumptions about what that felt like. And once they got back even just 10 responses, they realized that stopping and listening and actually even asking the question, it stopped them from doing all of these other programs they thought were going to be important. When it was really, well, I just wanted somebody to ask me a question when I arrived. I mean, it was such a simple fix. And so now they have this little happy mirror. I'm not kidding. I mean, you wouldn't think that that would be enough to solve that problem in that patient waiting room, but they have a little happiness mirror that says, are you smiling? Are we smiling back? totally out of the box, unexpected. They were ready to reorganize the entire room. Instead, it was really that nobody was seeing me when I was here, and I was here for 2.5 hours. And I took 7 buses, and nobody cared. And that was maybe 10 or 7 different responses. So, listening and looking and learning from other people's perspectives oftentimes minimizes the work we have to do in innovating, because we don't make assumptions for the problem. We actually are just told what the problems are from all the different perspectives. So that's where I think this tool is really one of the most effective.
So how, I don't really see how this exercise translates to your example. Did they show patients pictures? Or?
You just ask each of these people, our persona is an actual person. So they actually would go and have interviews, group interviews, focus interviews with people. Each one of these people represents, it could be a patient, a doctor, a nurse in that case. And in your cases, I'm sure it's a broad group of people,
Right,
and organizations.
And maybe just to expand, so I think, and correct me, so you also have different type of patients, right?
Yeah.
So you have the children, you have people that are elderly, and those needs may not be the same, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of like tuning in really with, and I'd say even like going even sometimes one step deeper in that there is a perceived issue, but sometimes the perceived issue is not really the issue. So you do have to dig a little bit more, and that's where you have techniques like the 5 whys that come in that are very strong, because that helps you just get to the core issue, and then you're not wasting your time solving a problem that's not really the problem. And I mean, for me in my practice, I mean, a lot of time, I mean, this is a lot of the work, just kind of sitting, figuring out, oh, okay, so you're telling me, say you have a process issue, and that's at this step, but wait, I mean, does it really have to do with the process, or is it something totally different? And yeah, to your point, I think sometimes it doesn't require like the big guns, and it doesn't require a lot of money to find new solutions that work better.
And this is just one tool.
Yeah, and I want to like to spin that tool a little further if you can help us on that. So we have now those things we wrote down. Stop at a nice planet, get a girlfriend, music, zen moment, I get a normal life, get a 6-pack, get a new dress, and so forth. So how would you spin that further now with all those things you have? So what would be the next step?
So that's, I mean, now we did like all the divergent ideas, I mean, kind of like wild ideas spinning left and right. And then in a second step, you have to re-sit down and further flesh them out. So there is also that's the process where you converge the ideas and you're able to identify trends, different categories of solution. So, one may be, okay, there is nothing you can do about it, it's just about your attitude. You have to change attitude. Another category may be to get help with organizational tools, and under that you would have like a lot of different solutions. And this is the step where you converge the ideas, and that's also the step where you would take some of these different ideas and combine them. So it's about building up and
Hi guys!
For citizen science, it definitely has more females. It's very science and tech heavy obviously, and maybe the split is 50-50, but that's obviously not representative. It pulls more from what the pool is, I think.
Oh, that's a good point.
So, and where I work, we're almost all females, which confuses visitors sometimes. And I would say in the space, that intersection between science and technology in international development or social mission, that's also more females, more minorities than we see from the departments and organizations we pull from. But there are other fields that do that. Bioengineering does that as well for whatever reason, so there's pockets of it.
So we heard some of those cool projects you mentioned with the radiation, or I don't know, there was a
maternity,
cool project.
electricity, yeah.
So what was different as you would have expected? Was there some highlight in your career where you say, oh my God, I never would have thought that this would be the outcome? in terms of a project or in terms of dealing with people, or in the work you do. It doesn't matter if it's a project or
All the time.
Say the same thing.
One area where I think there's a lot of creativity at work, I didn't expect to see it, is an infrastructure project. We often think of a small gadget or a sexy tool, but we're doing things like whole village scale energy grids in really creative ways. Cheap cell phone towers you can turn off when you don't need to use them, so that they're affordable in low density areas. And so that's an area that you would think of, kind of similar as someone implying you would think of creativity in government. But actually there too, we now work with the US federal government, and there's a lot more creativity than I expected. Also in these big organizations and big massive projects, and that's interesting.
And are any of their projects publicized where more citizens could find out to be part of the projects, or is this just coming online? That, for example, a catalog of projects that are the current thinking are publicized, that the common citizen could actually be part of the solution? Or how would one find a summary of your 50 projects?
We list those on our website.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, but here too, we love having people come in, but there's let's say for the maternity ward, the electricity for maternity wards, they're in dozens of countries. They have full-time employees, but they have a lot of people volunteering as well. But there's a commitment in that, right? And there's a time and dedication to it. So the doors are open, but with time.
Do you also research on innovation when it comes to business models? Because in the development sector, or like social entrepreneur sector, it's always like the challenge: are you an NGO or are you a charity? Can you be profitable? So, or you focus on profit. And I just come back from India and was on a journey focusing on that. And there were very interesting models on, you create a funding company, but you have another one where you would do your business with. So, I think these insights are very helpful for many companies to know about that and be inspired by that.
For sure. This is the hot topic now, right? What's your financial sustainability? And if you have a social mission, how can you do that in a way that's also financially sustainable? The double bottom line: you make a profit and you also have a social mission. Where I work, we do that mostly in the sense of where it intersects closely with technology. So for example, we do a lot of projects integrating sensors in the products we roll out, or the interventions, or the community service, or health programs, for example. So say, how can we get rapid feedback about what works and what doesn't, and do it in new and really powerful ways? Or in the electricity grid example, how can we prevent energy theft? Can we create systems where people can pay $1 at a time? Because those are the type of communities we're serving right now in Rajasthan and India. So those are things integrated with business models, but they really are questions about how can engineers and scientists contribute to business models. It's one piece of the pie.
Actually, surprisingly, we deal with it all the time in the US in healthcare. And the reason is that the healthcare historically has been a pay-for-process kind of model. You go to the doctor, then the doctor gets paid for seeing you. And so there's no incentive to really keep you healthy. And with accountable care, that model's flipped around. And so all of the players in the healthcare industry are just confused now. I always think of it as like the Poseidon Adventure. Anyone see it? Suddenly the ship is upside down now, or it's turning. And so all the business models are now being thrown out in the air, and you have to rethink it. So we do it all the time. We look at any technology and we say, how is this going to enter into both the existing healthcare system and the evolving healthcare system, the future healthcare system? We're constantly doing it.
Where would you say that process is at with healthcare in this country? Has the boat already turned over? Is it starting to turn over?
Where's
it at?
With accountable care, it's definitely starting to turn over. So there are major, the pilot was done last year, so there are major organizations that are moving that way. Like companies like Kaiser, providers like Kaiser that were fully integrated, so they always had it. Or the VA, these are the largest healthcare systems in the country that have always, because they've been integrated, they always care about making sure they deliver the best value for money. The others are following. It's surprising. I think it's going to be a tipping point in the next 2 years. It's going to change. It's all going to change.
Good.
2 to 3 years.
we always hear about those great projects and when they're successful, it's really cool to hear. But have you experienced any pitfalls or any what can you? I mean, you mentioned that you need an advocate for a certain project in a corporation. What are pitfalls? What can people do or companies do wrong? You know, that it's not successful.
Yeah, actually having the advocate is one of our biggest risk factors, because when that advocate who's kind of really keeping the innovation program going, if they leave or if they get moved roles, often the whole innovation program will collapse because no one else is accountable. And we actually find that problem with governments and local councils, groups that go around elections every few years. So we'll get the program up and running, it'll be really successful, and a new group will come in with new ideas, and that's it. Kind of the momentum stops. So that's actually really tough, and it's something we're trying to really address at the moment, is making the responsibility for it more distributed and not just on one person. So it's everyone's responsibility to make the company more innovative, and no, it's a tough problem to fix.
Sounds like an opportunity for incentives.
Incentives, yeah.
I'm not going to use the word gamify because that's maybe going too far, but
yeah, incentives definitely help. So we, both for kind of the people taking part in the platform, it's the, I guess at the end of the day, someone has to pay for software and pay for the ideas, and getting people to take that on when often at the end of the beginning of the year they've already allocated all their budget, and then an idea comes up in the middle of the year. It's like, well, could do that, but I've already spent all my money.
Such a pain when money gets in the way. That's not enough.
So it is tough.
One of the pitfalls we run into is managing expectations. You know, we're very good at solving problems, or we're very good at getting from a point A to point B. But the path you take, you don't know. And many times our stakeholders, whether it's our client or collaborator or even the university that we're working with, doesn't, they're used to having a plan, and you go down this plan, and it doesn't work like that in innovation. And so it's very difficult to get them to manage the expectations correctly. That's our single biggest challenge at the time. I mean, we get there in the end. It's just a question of what path you take or how long it might take sometimes.
Yeah. People expect it's like the magic button.
Exactly. They think,
It doesn't work that way?
No.
Have you found that media attention or reaching out to the media to enroll more volunteers, has that helped, or is that cumbersome or a hindrance?
For us, it's incredible help.
Incredible help, right? That's what I was intent to think.
Yeah, it's motivating for people working on it.
Right.
As you go through that first stage, and you're trying to get through what we call prototypeitis, where past the first prototype, it's hard to move on.
Do you have publicists that work to get the media's attention for you?
We have some part-time sort of help, but it's hard working with a bunch of engineers like me who don't communicate well.
Great.
Well, I was looking at Laura Stackel, and Dr. Laura Stackel is at the Bloom Center, and literally she writes her own press releases.
Wow.
Right. Tough time because I worked for her pro bono for 2 months. She does her own blogging. She uploads all the pictures on Facebook when they come in from Africa. So it's truly a passionate social entrepreneur who cannot stop and probably sleeps less and doesn't see her own kids. Right?
But that's authenticity, because that is what people believe at the end. Because if people slice and dice my press release or what the CEO is thinking, who cares about that? Yeah.
So none of you knew each other before this event, all of the panelists? If you had known, now that you know each other, do you think there are synergies with one? I mean, and that's the
with
thing.
both of them. I've already talked to them.
So you were asking about sharing for the citizens, but in reality, sharing between organizations of your same type would actually be much more powerful, right? And then you could spread that to other areas.
Duplicated efforts.
Yeah, exactly.
mean, that would be great for you to, you know, have the central website or Exchange or Dropbox.
You know, are you looking into the social media? You know, what people are saying in the social world, in the social web, for your projects?
I think for me it doesn't so much apply because we mainly work with companies who are more internally focused pieces. And actually they're kind of opposite. They want to lock things down. People can't.
They don't want anybody else to know what you
Yeah,
discovered.
no one else can know.
Okay.
Yeah, even like some sites that when we first start working with them, they want all ideas to be anonymous. They want to review every idea before everyone can see it. So we have to kind of bring them around to the kind of being more open to collaboration. Outsourcing.
What do you think about that, looking at innovation? I mean, I'm German, and we Germans, we have patents for everything, and we don't share. And what I learned from Silicon Valley is that people do share, and they believe that only if you share, you can, you know, grow faster, or, you know, as a community or as a society. If everybody builds its own code, you're going to be way slower than you are if you can build up with someone else's code. Like, is that something where, I mean, how would you consult your companies on that point?
That's actually interesting you mentioned Germany because that's definitely one of the toughest markets we particularly for the kind of intellectual property side of it.
And everything is behind a paywall.
Everything's crazy.
Ideas and money.
Yeah, but even with patents in America, once you have a good one, you know, the Google and all those guys, they have lawyer galore buying every little guy's patent so that they can protect the big guy. So it's not that free here.
Yeah, and in fact we work pretty closely with AT&T, who are one of our most successful customers. They get 75,000 ideas entered every year on their platform. They've had maybe 100 or so patents come out. Employee ideas on focus challenges.
Good. I hope some of them work.
Some of them, in fact, if you go to
for AT&T, they really need it.
That goes for every
I'm
time.
glad you're doing work.
The issue with AT&T is most of their employees are contractors. You know, they're growing so fast that you talk to any guy who comes to your house, they're not full-time employees. They're
How about
contractors.
listening to their customers?
But I'd just like to add something on that what you asked or what you said.
Time is over.
Open innovation.
I'm hoping you had fun.
I mean, I know it from there's surveys out there on the CIO level. Innovation is one of the biggest topics for CIOs in corporate America, and it's a competitive advantage. I mean, if you are faster with what you do, or better, or more innovative, I want to see the company who wants to share that. I have to be honest, because at the end, it's about profits, it's about making money and keeping your competitive edge. And yes, I think innovation is shared on a certain level here more than in other countries. It's still a tough sale, you know. It's just
Okay, I'll be the enforcer.
So actually, you and I.
Talk to each other, kind of like interview each other, have a conversation about what you like and you don't like about name tags. You can use the one that you're presently wearing. I can tell you things that I don't like, right? You know, I did this and my name tag got stuck in my hair, right? Or is it? And then, so talk for like a couple of minutes about that. And then we'll give you
So our idea for a better intro advice, well, what we don't like is probably what you guys all don't like. They don't stay on, right? Hello, this is for money. But what we do like is that it does provide a way to introduce yourself. When you're meeting somebody for the first time, you have a lot to take in. You've got the visual, and you're trying to understand their name, their background, and everything else. This helps because it gives you something to read and retain while you're looking at the person. So we thought a better intro device might be to have a button that you have here. Buttons can be any size. We also like buttons because they're round, and like a human face is sort of round, so it's kind of personal.
Can they be reusable?
Yeah, so we went down that road. So the button, you know, the first idea we had is that the button could have a question on it that you want answered when you come to the event. But you can see how many millions of directions you can go with the button. Nicole mentioned we could have an anime character that represents us, right?
For you that day.
Right, for you that day. So you want to take it from here?
Well, and then the idea was, wouldn't it be great if the organization has some kind of easy-to-use software where prior to the event, you go up, you upload your anime character or your question, you print it out, and or is there's a shared cost model. She's going, oh. But you know, then it is personalized, reflects you the day of, brings a question into the forum that others might be interested in, and you have an immediate point of,
Any other ideas?
Yeah, I want to connect to that. And Marita and Chloe, we talked about that, and Marita came up with the idea of having a QR code. You know, when as soon as you come close to the person with your device, so you would see, and then we spent the idea of to have Google Glasses, where you would see who that person is, and you could address her with her name and with all the details, and we came up with a second level of information. So in the beginning, it might just be the person and the job and the company they're from. But then when you connect with this person, and with some you don't, because you say hello and that's it. And with others you have a more better connection, and then you can get more information. Right? Let's say what their hobbies are, a little more details, personal information, and so forth.
So to build on that, a lot of our observations included that when you look at a name tag, you're not looking at someone's face. Like you're spending a lot of time looking someplace elsewhere, but ultimately that's like how you build trust and have a relationship, is to look them straight in the eyes. So we came up with an even smarter button, which is like a smart name tag, and it would like scan your face, has facial recognition capabilities, and then it would match your face to this database that has all of your professional information miraculously.
And I'm going to add a tool to that, because it's a client of mine, beyond verbal. You would also have a device that would capture your voice intonation while you're talking to me. And it would give me a screen that says what you mood in, and I could actually target you better and or reply to you. Because I know your underlying mood.
How is that for Can I add something that my button like pronounces my name too, or you hear without me saying it, pronounces it like in your ear or something. It's like, okay, now I know how to pronounce her name, right? Because that's a problem that I have.
And it changes colors with your mood.
Like
Now it's getting even better. That's escalated pretty quickly.
Of knowing before you come, I think it would be very important in a lot of networking events that I go to. I like to know who am I going to see there, because part of the event is to prepare for what you're going to learn, who you're going to meet, and if we could, distribute the information or see like on Eventbrite who's coming. Then you can just scan it and see, oh, okay, I know this one, I don't know that one, but I'd like to meet her or meet him. It'd be more targeted.
My gosh, the software could actually match your personalities or interests.
So only talk to this person.
So in this last minute, what did you like about the process? We uncovered lots of interesting opportunities, if you will, problems that are opportunities. Any thoughts on the process?
It's so cool because honestly, with just thinking that same question, it was so simple, and it was 2 steps. It was 2 simple questions. You had to think about one thing, and then bet what you like and don't like, and then the second question, how can you turn it into a better device? I just cannot believe how simple it was, and then how stimulating it was for all of us.
It was actually fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of creativity comes under constraint too, right? We have constraint time,
definitely.
we don't have the perfect space, perhaps we don't even have a vertical surface to write and put post-its. It doesn't matter. If you have the mindset, you can do it, right? So it's about having the mindset and perseverance. I can find a way of doing this, right?